journey. Me through working with Black community, working with Indigenous community, messing up, holding me gently, talking to me about, okay, well, that happened. So how do we move through that? That's the kind of leader that Christiana is. There's someone who is going to look at every point of view and figure out where the different pieces are and find, look, we have a shared goal. We want to end homelessness in Seattle. Everyone should feel safe in Seattle. Everyone should be able to get around Seattle. The poor shouldn't be fronting all of the bills. That is our shared goals. Those are our shared values. Thank you. That is what we're going to drive towards. Christiana is going to look at all those different places with their expertise, having passed many legislative pieces through the state, through city council, being a co-chair of the Renters Commission, being a co-chair of the Disability Commission. They're going to work with every single person in this room, in every room in Seattle, to make sure that we attain those goals.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Liza Rankin. I am your current Seattle School Board Vice President and Legislative Liaison. And I come to that position, or now, including those, are a decade of educational advocacy in SPS as a parent and a community member. I'm the mom of 2 students in SPS who started 6th grade and 9th grade yesterday. And great start to the school year for them. And as I hear around the district for many others, really positive, strong start this year. It's really exciting. I ran in 2019 on a platform of educational equity and in support of the district's strategic plan. And that was kind of a calling for me after having participated in and supported the teacher strike in 2015. I coordinated support and advocacy around picket lines all across the city. And from there, just kept going, kept learning more about issues, getting involved in policy, going to every school board meeting, and getting deeper and deeper into the why of the issues around the 2015 strike, and learning how and where and why different decisions are made, and where to apply pressure, what knowledge needed to happen, how to share it with community, why things were happening, and how they could get involved and advocate in support of our students and our educators. And so one thing led to another, and I was looking for a great candidate to support in 2019, and people sort of kept saying, you should do it. And so I did. And it's been, I did not expect for a global pandemic to be part of my first term on the board. So in this time of recovery from the pandemic, budget challenges, absenteeism is increasing, I'm running again to keep continuing this work for students.
Hello, my name is Debbie Carlson, and I am running for school board director here in District 1 and now citywide. And I'm actually running because the status quo is not working. We are in a budget crunch as this year and next year and continuing. We have declining enrollment roles, and we are not hitting our equity mark when it comes to academic excellence or students furthest from educational justice. So I'm here because there's 3 reasons why I'm running particularly is I want to bring more transparency to the district, especially with big decisions that are being made like school closures. I want to bring more authentic community engagement. For example, with the well-resourced schools process, this hasn't been a transparent discussion on the precursor of school closures. And it's happening in the summer. It's not really reaching folks that are furthest from educational justice, students from educational justice, and families that represent students from educational justice. I'm also concerned about equity. I'm running on an intersectional equity platform in the sense that I am an out LGBTQ person. I want to be a strong LGBTQ voice on the board, which doesn't exist now, especially in this backlash. We need to have that voice and an intersectional voice present on the board. My background is I was an executive director for 10 years. I've been doing budgets, budget planning and financial statement overview. I've been doing fundraising. I've been advocating at the state, city, and county level for the last 10 years. Currently, I'm an early learning educator, and I'm also a consultant doing advocacy work at the state, city, and county level. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Ben Gittenstein. I'm a candidate for District 3 in the school board, which is sort of just south of here, U District, Lowellhurst, Wedgwood, Bryant, that sort of area. Actually, I was telling some folks here, I spend a lot of time in this particular building. My daughter uses CDC, the Creative Dance Center. She's been a dancer here for a long time, so I have spent many an hour in that parking lot and chat room right there working while she makes a lot of noise in there. I love this building. Quirky and awesome. I'm running for Seattle School Board for a very simple reason. It's on the t-shirt. I don't believe we should close schools. Let me tell you a little bit about why. I think every kid in Seattle deserves great public education, great public school, and Seattle Public Schools should be for every kid. If we don't change direction pretty soon, though, we're going to lose a lot of the progress that we've made over the last several decades. So we need to make some big changes. You can see that in the budget deficit. Over the next 2 years, we have about a $200 million budget deficit cumulatively. That's after spending all of our rainy day fund this last year. So we have a real fiscal problem. As a result, the district is clearly laying the groundwork for closing schools, which I believe to be the wrong direction. We should go the opposite direction. We should reinvest in schools and bring more programs to neighborhood schools and treat those neighborhood schools as a source of strength, not a source of inefficiency. So as your school board member, thank you. As your school board member, I will fight to do just that. The Seattle Times endorsed me because they thought that I would speak truth to power, ask hard questions, and be a voice for change on the board. If you believe that we need change, I'd like your vote.
Hi, everybody. I'm Evan Briggs. I'm also running for District 3 School Board. I am the mom of 3 SPS students. I have one in elementary, one in middle, and one in high school. So we've been in the district for about 9 years, and I have about 10 years to go. So it's going to be a long run for me with Seattle Public Schools. And what I've noticed in my years so far is that there's some really great things happening in Seattle Public Schools. We've had some amazing experiences and some really wonderful teachers. And then there's some things that are really not so great. I think I'm running mainly because I really believe that in this city that is so well resourced that every single kid, regardless of the neighborhood that they live in, deserves access to a really high quality education. And when I think of high quality education, I think it's defined by the 3 R's, which are relevance, rigor, and relationship. And so I think we need to make sure that every kid in the city has access to that type of education. My top priorities include addressing the mental health issue that our kids are facing. It's a real crisis right now. And I think our kids are not going to be able to learn and thrive if we cannot attend to their basic mental health needs. So that's very top of the list for me. I also think that we need increased community engagement. And I think fiscal transparency comes along with that. So that's another area of concern for me and focus. And in my background, I'm a documentary filmmaker. That's actually my background. And I believe that I could play an important role as far as messaging goes, because I think the district has a long way to go in terms of rebuilding trust between the community and parents and district staff. And we're out of time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Ann Wood, and I come to you from about as far away, I think, in this district as or this city as you can come to this place. And that's West Seattle. So I live out of beautiful Alki. Yay. Yep, I like the sound of that. So my platform, well, my background in running for an office is 0. I've never done anything like this before. Putting myself out there to try to mobilize around some issues in the Seattle public schools is not anything I thought I would be doing. I have no background in politics. However, I was once president of the West Seattle Garden Club. So those are my qualifications. I have 5 children. I have 6 grandchildren, 3 of whom are students in Seattle Public Schools, 1 of whom is a special needs student. So I come to you because of what started out as a very localized issue. And that was the building of one of these mega schools around the block from me. I believe that it is on the road to closing schools. The building of these large schools is a way to accommodate students. And thank you very much. I spent a lot of time talking about nothing. But anyway, yeah, I said I was new to this. So transparency, communication, because of this project, I know that those things are lacking. Communication between the district, between the board, between the families, between the communities. And I am going to work as best I can on your behalf to change that. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you to the Holler Light Community Club for hosting us this evening and for Randy for organizing. Randy and I had a chance to speak a little bit, and I learned that he has a retired educator with 27 years in Seattle Public Schools. So thank you, Randy, for all your work. Is Jean Top, and I am running for Seattle School Board District 6, which is West Seattle, South Park, Soto, Georgetown, Pioneer Square area. So a little bit of a drive from here. And I'm running for school board because growing up here in Washington, I experienced firsthand the underfunded schools. Yet teachers like Randy and counselors in my schools shaped who I am today. I'm standing before you today because of my public school education. And this week we sent my daughter to preschool for the first time, which was a big step for a mom. And, you know, like many other parents I'm hearing from, I'm worried. We've heard it down the line. Seattle Public Schools is facing a staggering budget deficit. We're looking at the next school year, $104 million. There's talk of closing schools and laying off teachers and cutting music programs and bus programs. And in this moment, we need experienced leaders who have dealt with difficult budget decisions and policy decisions. And working at Keaton County as Chief Legal Counsel and Policy Advisor, I have managed complex policy and budget challenges. I bring that experience to this role in this critical moment. And that experience shows through the support I've gotten through different endorsements. I've gotten both the Seattle Times and the Stranger endorsement. I'm endorsed by the Seattle Education Association, so the educators who are in our schools each day, and countless elected officials, including the King County Executive and the King County Council Member Rod Dubowski from this district. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for Holler Lake community organize such a beautiful event. My name is Jesse Tam, not Jesse James. Jesse Tam, open bank. Jesse James, wrong banks. Okay, let's make sure we get that clear. My background is somewhat different. I came as an immigrant to this country, and as a teenager with $300 in my pocket, with one focus. I'm ready to be part of the country of the future. I want the freedom. I want the liberty. I want the opportunity to be part of the change. Positive. I spent 40 years now in King County. My career started in a mailroom on the basement. And 25 years later, I was opening my own bank in downtown Seattle. I was very proud of myself, not because of the money, it's because I was able to finance a lot of small minority women businesses, create a lot of jobs. Okay, job means a lot to working family in this area. So when I study about the Port of Seattle, the last 2 years, I realized Port of Seattle is the only Washington state government entity could generate enough revenue and without taxing any one of us. Unfortunately, today I'm sharing with you that 2023, there is a tax levy of $83 million to every one of us for a home. That shouldn't be happening if the port manage the money, $1 billion revenues a year correctly, efficiently, should be money to be distributed for environmental cleanup, make sure we have the educational program, and many more we can do for the social responsibility in the King County area. With that, I'm glad to be endorsed by former Governor Gary Locke, many others. Thank you.
Questions now, and Kathy Moore, you take the first question. I'm going to try to do this. This comes from our audience here. Here we go. Yeah. Why do drainage fees from SPU, Seattle Public Utilities, keep going up? $200 each year. There were from $143 in 2007 to $2,200 in 2023. This is more than I can contribute to state schools. Could you respond to that?
Thank you, Matthew. Truthfully, I do not know the answer to this question, but what I can tell you is that's not okay. We have to figure out a way to continue to control the costs. There are too many people in our city who are being really priced out of this community. Too many homeowners who can no longer afford to live in their homes are beginning to feel terrified and frightened that they are not going to be able to continue to live in their homes. We are a very generous community, but because of a regressive tax system in our state, we have to look at other ways to fund our social services and the many needs we have in our community. And so we look to the property levies. And we need to figure out a way that we can shift the burden away from property owners and the property levy tax. And we need to look at utility taxes. Utility taxes are exorbitant in the city of Seattle and in the county. We need to look at sales taxes. We really need to take a hard look at where can we generate revenue that is not going to hit people who are already struggling to stay in their homes and meet the increasing costs of living in a very expensive city.
Matthew Lang for Christiana.
And thank you for that, Kathy. It is wild that our regressive taxes keep going up and up and up and up, squeezing out the people that can least afford to have that kind of financial instability just levied on their lives. Unfortunately, because of things that are at the state, we have certain problems with raising revenue other than property taxes, sales taxes, gas taxes, utility taxes. We need to look at different ways that we can look at the top 20% of earners who are paying 3-4%, businesses mostly, of their entire revenue towards taxes, whereas the bottom 20% are paying almost 20% of their entire income towards taxes. We need to make sure that people can live in place and stay in place, including property tax exemptions for seniors and making sure that folks that can't afford it have a way out.
Thank you. School board. Okay, what do you think about the proposed school closures?
Well, what do I get, 90 seconds? Oh my gosh, that's not enough time to talk about this. Okay. So we have in our city, something that has happened time and time again since the start of Seattle Public Schools. Enrollment goes up and down. We have had as many as 100,000 kids in Seattle Public Schools in the 60s to, we're actually not at the lowest point now, but we're in a dip. It's projected to go back up. Our state funds school districts by enrollment. Means that money is per student. So the fewer students we have, the less income there is, which in a relative, theoretical sense means, well, the fewer students there are to serve. So why would you need as much money? Well, that allocation goes towards all kinds of things that are not just a one-to-one expense for that student. It's just an allocation model by the number of students that's used for library, grounds, curriculum, any number of things. And so we also have a scenario where we've opened new schools, 10 new schools since I started doing this advocacy work in 2015. So we have a real mismatch between the number of kids and the number of schools. And when we're funded on a per pupil basis, if we want every kid to have access to a counselor, a librarian, music, all of those great things that define a complete education system for us, we have to look at how we can contract and use our expenses, use our funding really, really wisely, and that might mean consolidated schools.
I'm going to go back to Matthew.
The other school board people get to.
That's true. Yeah. Go ahead, rebuttal to that. Well, these are paired.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the one gets the rebuttal, and then another question. We're not gonna go down one.
This is my first candidate forum, so I'm loving learning as we go along. I'm digging this. The district is presenting a scenario and argument that it's inevitable that schools are going to close. We've heard the scenarios of the up and down enrollment. What we aren't going for is a vision on how we actually fully fund schools and prioritize that energy rather than thinking about doing what we should do as the last resort is close schools. Closing schools is a huge disruption for students, for communities. And what we also know is even within, Dr. Jones was quoted within the Seattle Times that school closures are not going to actually solve our budget problem in 2024 and 25. This is not inevitable. And we're trying to change that dialogue and come up with other solutions. And there's, as my colleague has said, this is a lot, and to do it in 90 minutes is short. So thank you. Oh, I only got 60 seconds. Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So let's see here. We have got a question for the candidate here. Okay, in recent years, Seattle Public Schools has lost over 3,000 students. As a board member, how would you try to fix that situation?
So this is for me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So great question, because it's actually at the heart of what's going on with Seattle Public Schools. It's actually worse than that. We've lost 3,000 students, but if you look at the district's own projections forward, the total loss is like 15% of our student population between roughly 2 years ago and 2032. So we face a really steep decline in enrollment. And it's question you have to ask is why. The first point, the first challenge with asking why is that we actually don't know why we are losing students. There's some evidence that it might have to do with housing affordability. That's probably very true. My first job when I first moved to Seattle, and one of my first careers here, was I ran the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance. Spent a lot of time in Olympia advocating for housing affordability, for ending homelessness, funding for all of that. We achieved a lot down there. So I'm a passionate believer that we have a housing crisis in Seattle. Clearly that has some impact. At the same time, we see enrollment rising in places like private schools. We also see the overall population in Seattle is not overall declining. So we have some real challenge in understanding why. I think one of the main reasons that we are losing families is because families don't see themselves in public school, Seattle public schools anymore. Fewer and fewer families see Seattle public schools as the option for their kid. The way to bring them back is to offer them more programs that make them see themselves and see Seattle Public as an outlet for their kid, as a way to achieve more for their kid to achieve more as a student.
And the button.
So agreed, it's hard to pinpoint why exactly we have declining enrollment, and certainly housing and affordability of the city plays a huge role in that. But I think, wait, I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. I had like a really specific thing I was gonna say. Hold on, give me oh well, the clock is ticking. On pressure, like my brain stopped working. Oh my God.
Okay.
I know. Okay.
This was about the, 3,000 student loss.
Right. Oh my God. I totally lost my train of this. Is unfortunate, folks. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I really just blanked here. I fully had a thing to say and it just went right out of my head.
You'll have another shot.
Okay. All right. I'll be back.
Okay, moving down. Okay, question. 90-second question. Can you discuss the shortfalls today between McCleary, which is full funding of schools, and what's happening now with the Seattle school budget?
No. It's contagious.
Sorry.
It's such a complex issue and not one that I fully understand. I know that we have budget shortfalls. I know that it has to do with our declining enrollment. I would have much rather answered the question about the declining enrollment than to have to talk about specifics of why we have these budget shortfalls. The rebuttal on this is going to be brutal. However, I will say this. Just, it's purely anecdotal, but I am involved in an issue out in West Seattle where this district has found money to, I see the timer, has found money to sue the city of Seattle over the building at Alki. And yet, we are finding ourselves without money to provide the resources that schools need, and in particular, these small neighborhood schools. I'm out of time.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
And rebuttal?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. It's the state's paramount duty to fund our schools. Thank you. But I'll say to fix our funding problems statewide for our schools, we have to address our underlying tax problems. Washington State has the most regressive tax structure in the entire country. Here in the most prosperous region, our tax system has remained largely unchanged since the Great Depression, when our economy relied on commodities like timber and salmon and things that we don't rely on anymore. And we must update our tax system to be fair and to be updated to the 21st century. As an attorney with a master's in tax law, I'm not only deeply passionate about this issue, but I bring the expertise to the table, and my time's up. Thank you.
A question for Jesse, Port Commission. Jesse, you say that the Port of Seattle is embroiled in a management crisis. That current CTAC is unsuitable for large jets and not suitable at all for low income and families of color living nearby. Would you please comment?
In 30 seconds? 90 seconds.
You have
Okay,
90.
in that case, I get right to the point, okay? I don't have much time. The International SeaTac Airport is a huge expansion to our King County, Port of Seattle, from a $344 million to a $1 billion contract. 4 airplanes could not park there for a year so far. Consider the revenue. How about $278 million lawsuit still going on between the port and the contractor? In my own estimation, $800 million questionable. Okay, it's your money, my money. Because of that, all the rents and parking fees and everything going up. No money to fix the air pollution problem. The air pollution coming down from the airport, going down to the south end of the SeaTac area, SeaTac and South Park, and all the way down to Federal Way and all the other city. They file a class action lawsuit because people are suffering for the air pollution. Okay. Now, if we have the money, then we'll fix all the problem. If we don't have the money, we just talk. So be serious about this. This is our community. It's not about North End, South End, anywhere you want to talk about East Coast, East Side or Virgin Island. Everybody responsible for that, okay? Ended up subsidizing from the tax levy. So hate to say that.
Back to Kathy. So Kathy. No, I started this. That's fine. That's fine. This is the question online, I think. And the question is, why are we paying for parking at metro stations? Angle Lake Station does not pay. Do you have a comment about that?
Could you elaborate a little bit more? Who's paying for?
I think we heard the question online. Can you help with that, President?
In Northgate, you pay for parking, at Angle Lake, you don't.
Great, thank you. That's a great clarification. I appreciate it. Well, first of all, Northgate is. Oh.
The garage is free.
Oh.
So it is.
No, it's not.
I never did.
Let's let the people figure. So I'm not. So clearly there's mixed understanding of how this system should work. It's very evidenced by the responses in this room just now. We should be making sure that people have access to transit. We should be making sure that people have access to low fare transit. We should not be putting up barriers for folks that want to use transit. Christiana truly believes that we need to be investing in a Green New Deal. That includes making sure that we are bringing transit to every corner of Seattle, not just north to south, east to west, last mile. Christiana themselves, we were talking about last mile, and what they told me, they were like, well, there's a Lime bike and a scooter, but Because of my disability, I can't stay up on two wheels. Because of my disability, I can't stand on a scooter for the 1.5 miles it takes for me to get home. How am I going to get there? How am I going to get there when there's no sidewalk? I had walked up without a sidewalk. I parked in gravel over here today. That is something that we need to think about. We need to bring every corner of our transportation and transit system together so that we can be all truly working towards the Green New Deal that we all believe in.
I guess a simple answer would be that Metro doesn't work very well. There's a lot of problems with Metro. It's a huge system, and I think philosophically it's a good system, but it's a big bureaucracy, and we need to really pay attention and be much more in the weeds with Metro. One of the things that I'm really concerned about is the cuts to bus service that are happening because we are linking. We're using light rail as an anchor for bus service, and so we are really cutting back on the bus services that we have, particularly over in Lake City. We do need a lot more east-west, but we are also going to need to continue north-south, even with the light rail in place. And we are going to need all of the mobility improvements that Christiana supports and that I also support. One of the things that I also think is incredibly important is that we start having van services like access vans. We can do that intra-neighborhood. Thank you.
Take a question.
Yeah.
And the question is, we have seen gun violence in our schools and nearby our schools. What would you say about that particular issue?
I think you're referring to the Ingram High School shooting, perhaps. So what I know is that when that happened, obviously that was a huge tragedy and shock to our community. And what I've been hearing from parents and students was that there was a really slow response from board and district to really step up and support both students, teachers, as well as parents in what are next steps, what can be done, how do we support, how do we heal. And what I want to do as a board member is be present right away, show up, have community forums, connect, and then talk to communities about what are next steps. One of the things that I really want to congratulate the Seattle Student Union is that they ended up organizing and finding out, like talking about mental health issues that are needed. And they got $4.5 million from the city to do 5 pilot programs around mental health within 5 different schools. That is an awesome response to an issue to increase mental health, to increase access to services for students on a preventative level, which could look like mental health services, which could look like more social emotional programs within schools, after school programs, or anti-violence after school programs. There are things that we are doing or want to do more of. And yeah, thank you. There's more to be done for sure. Thank you.
60 seconds.
All
All right. So the Ingram shooting is one piece of this, but we have really a pandemic around gun violence that's impacting people in and out of our schools, near our schools, our whole community. The day that students returned to Ingram, the Monday after the shooting, I was there with them and was in the building for full days for about 2 weeks after, talking to students, seeing what educators needed. And SPS, actually, since this is a rebuttal, I'm going to very much rebut what was said. SPS had additional security there for months. They had additional support staff, not cops, security. I saw a big thumbs down. Additional security there, just helping make sure that students felt comfortable and safe, that just to add that extra level of protection from outside. And we had central office behavioral health staff there for months, providing care in classes, providing individual care, meeting with the community, several community meetings. But we've also got a bigger problem in our communities that impacts all of our schools. And as the sole endorsed candidate for Alliance for Gun Responsibility, I know it's work that has to continue.
I think Evan, you take a question. And Evan, I refer to you to your statement in the campaign pamphlet. You stated in that in a city of abundant resources, there are persistent opportunity gaps that lead here that these problems we lead the nation in these problems. Describe the gaps and what you plan to do about them in SPS.
Okay, oops, sorry. Yes, it is true that Seattle Public Schools has the 5th worst opportunity gap between Black and white. Well, I'm actually not sure what the current number is. We might have even gone down. It just means that our outcomes for specifically Black and Indigenous kids are so far from white kids. And that is obviously a huge problem, and it is the direct legacy of redlining in the city. And so I think there's a lot of systemic change that needs to take place in order for that to be addressed. So of course, as soon as I sat down, I remembered what I was going to say about the declining enrollment, and it ties to this, which is that another phenomenon that has occurred is that there are many children who are just absent from school now since post-pandemic, and they are referred to as the lost children, and we just don't have any way to account for where they are. And so I think when we talk about enrollment and we talk about opportunity gaps, we need to remember that there are a lot of children who are just not getting an education at all, and we don't even know where those kids are. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done and around making our school district more equitable, and that's actually one of the main reasons that I'm running for this position at a time.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, is it
Yeah,
just
got
the
the
rebuttal
Yep.
there? Okay, so I'll be brief. I think we all see the same problem because one of the things the district does, which I do really appreciate, is they publish data on this. And so if you go to the district website, you can see data on student testing outcomes. You can see, for example, that basically about a third of the students furthest from educational justice are meeting both 7th grade and 3rd grade, what we call our test scores, our targets for math and reading. Sort of an abominable set of numbers. We're basically failing a whole bunch of kids. So the question is why? We don't get another place where we don't get great answers. But I can tell you 3 things I would focus on as a board member. One, we've got to empower teachers to innovate in their classrooms. Teachers know a lot more than we give them the freedom and flexibility to do. Second, we need to put more programs back into schools. We need to bring in more creative programs. And third, we got to keep our small schools open because small schools help kids that are struggling.
Hey, Gina, I also quote from your campaign pamphlet. Sorry about that. Got it. Yeah, Gina, you were my oh, sure. Yep, I'll use that. This class is things drive me insane. Really insane. I have something called macular degeneration. Anyway, bummer. So Gina, let's see now, where was I? Make sure I got the right place here. Yeah, I definitely had a question for you. You were a legal counsel to the King County Executive, true?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. How would
Yes.
you use your skills as a member of the Seattle School Board?
Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna rebut that. At least, okay, good. Yeah, so technically, I was chief legal counsel and policy advisor. So my role entailed both sort of setting the legal agenda for the county executive, as well as setting sort of the policy agenda. So I got to do some really cool things. One of the things I got to do is when the Trump administration tried to take away money for family planning or for our study to show that, you know, abstinence-only sex education doesn't work, I got to sue them, and we won, and we got the money back. So I got to do some really cool things. And I gained some really great skills, as I mentioned. I bring that experience to the table, both from the policy. You know, I will be very candid. I don't have a lot of educational policy knowledge, but I know how to create sound policy, and I know how to engage community members and make sure that we co-create together to create good policy, and I've dealt with difficult budgets. So that's the experience that I bring from that role to the school board. And then I guess I'm going to use my last 17 seconds to say, I'm the one who has to leave early because of childcare, so I have to leave here tonight at 8:30, but I'll leave some pamphlets out with phone numbers if folks have further questions. Thank you.
Rebuttal, or perhaps how you would use your skills from your previous work?
Okay, I have no rebuttal of that.
Okay.
Again, Gina's very qualified. How I would use my skills. At this point, I see myself as being a real, true grassroots candidate. I come to you, as I said earlier, not with a lot of experience in politics or taking on, organizing huge things. I was in my garden, gardening and playing with my grandkids when I got not a change of heart, but felt a sense of purpose to come and try to do something different for the communities that are being served by Seattle Public Schools. And I think that I bring to that a wealth of life knowledge. So as a school board candidate, I see my time is up, but as a school board candidate, I would be the voice of just calm, reason gained from life experience. So thank you.
All right. To Jesse. Unfortunately, we lost a candidate.
I'm not complaining.
So, Jesse, you're on the spotlight, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing so.
Here's what I would like to ask you. I think there's people out here, including myself. What is the job of a port commissioner?
Very good point. In fact, you're not the only one asking me that. So many people ask it. You know how many commissioners we have on the port commission on the port of Seattle right now? 5. Okay, 5 commissioners are basically the board of directors overseeing an executive director and 200,000 workers underneath the port operation. Very large, bigger than Boeing, Microsoft, Amazon combined together. Is overseeing the SeaTac airport. Anyone using the SeaTac? Anybody go on the cruise? Anyone go to Alaska on the cruise ship? Okay. Everyone order stuff from Amazon. Everybody enjoy paying tax. Every time I get that question, it's that quiet. Okay. we should not have to pay tax levy to the Port of Seattle, okay? And I believe with my financial background, that would be my number one priority, to make sure the tax levy is not hurting your mortgage payment, it's not hurting the tenant's rent, and along the way, it's an economic engine. It's a job creator. We got to get back to the basics, okay? Since 1911, the port has been around. We take the port for granted all these years. It's time to get back to the basics. We don't have to be anything fancy, okay? The port has a mission. The port doesn't go into the school board taking care of kids. The port must taking care of the economy in this region. Thank you.
Okay, we should be able to get through another line of questions. And we are aware that some people do need to leave. Yeah. Kathy, here's a question that came online. How will you fight? How will you fight to increase the tax on large corporations?
Well, thank you for that question. As I think mentioned in one of my earlier answers, we do have a very regressive tax system. And right now, the city council did pass the Jumpstart tax, which is a tax on larger businesses in the city of Seattle. And it has been, there was a fair amount of opposition to it, but it has been overwhelmingly successful. And it continues to be overwhelmingly successful. And you were able, the city council, there was a budget deficit in the 2023-24 budget, and they looked to the Jumpstart to fill the holes. And so I am supportive of increasing the Jumpstart tax because it is still relatively low and there's plenty of room to go up. I'm also supportive of a local capital gains tax. That would be for people who are cashing in stocks and bonds over $250,000. It would be a lot of exclusions like in the state. So people on fixed incomes and people who, have mandatory withdrawals from their IRAs, that sort of thing, are not going to be affected. But there is, and again, that tax also has proved incredibly successful. So those would be my two main approaches: increasing Jumpstart and implementing a local capital gains tax.
So Christiana talks all the time about finding the taproot issues and reaching upstream to find those solutions that are going to actually change it. Not just put Band-Aids on symptoms. We're actually going to change the root causes. So let's look at I-135, the social housing PDA. It's unfunded. We need money for it. If we're going to do it, we have to raise money. We shouldn't be cannibalizing Jumpstart. I do agree that we should be increasing the Jumpstart tax revenue, doing a local capital gains tax. We need to do a vacancy tax also. There are vacancy signs all up and down Greenwood Avenue. There are vacancy signs in Lake City. There are empty apartments sitting there. Why? Because the people who need them can't afford them. So we need to provide a way to pay for the social housing so that people at all income levels, not just 80% AMI, can make a life here in Seattle and grow a future. Thank you.
Okay, Liza, I think you're up this time. Okay, what are your top 3 goals? I think we had something similar, but I'll ask it again anyway. What are your top 3 goals to improve safety in the schools?
Oh, okay. We actually I'm on the audit committee for the district, and we just had some updates about the district-wide safety analysis that we've done. So a project that the board approved in 2020 was to convert the locks on all the interior doors in our buildings so that they can be locked from the inside. When I was a kid in Seattle Public Schools, Teachers only needed to lock their door when they left at the end of the day. And they did that from the outside, took their keys with them. Now, unfortunately, there's times where they need to quickly be able to secure their classroom without having to step out into the hallway. So we're about 80% of the way done in all of the school buildings in Seattle Public Schools. Something that I think is really huge, and I know I heard a lot about in community meetings, like at Garfield around gun violence in the area, it was the importance of making community action teams so that we're in communication with each other between schools, Garfield, Nova. There's a community center, there's a teen center right there. We need to really start connecting those folks who are with our same kids day in and day out, and also know their neighborhoods and communities really well. So I really want to increase and encourage that project that's starting to, we're going to have, there's another one being worked on between Hale and Jane Addams. But safety for me also really means feeling safe and welcome at school. So whatever we do can't involve hardening and frightening children. It's about safety in the whole sense of the word.
Okay, and Bobby?
So, one of the things that I think is really important is to listen to students and I trust students and I trust teachers, I trust educators knowing what works the best and what's actually going to produce and create more safety within school spaces and schools. And so what I have been listening to from students is that they want more mental health services available in all schools, which is why the $4.5 million from the city of Seattle and the pilot programs are really important. And because it was so successful, each of those pilot programs were created through students or getting feedback from students and educators and so forth within the community. So each of those pilot programs are different and culturally relevant to the school. I think that that's what's positive. I also think that, and what students have said, they want more social emotional availability in teaching in schools, as well as after school programs that prevent violence, as well as what do I have written down here? Oh, they want a mental health, they want the culture of mental health week and so forth. So really creating that culture of safety. Thank you.
Okay, Marianne, you in your little pamphlet statement, you said that you have concerns about the one size fits all building. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure, I would love to elaborate on that. Piggybacking on what I've just heard. I believe that preemptive measures have to be taken to this issue of school safety. And I believe that having schools that have 500-600 students in them make it easier for students who might need those mental health services. And I'm talking about as young as elementary, might fall through the cracks. That it might be more difficult to work with families, to work with communities about what guarantees more easily that each student and their needs are met. And that if there is a problem, that it gets addressed before it blows up in the school. And so I am very much against the large mega schools. And that's one of the reasons is that I feel that the smaller community schools better address each individual student who may need services. I have 13 seconds left.
Could we ask a school board person to one rebuttal? If we do that?
Okay.
Oh, that's right. It's
Sure,
actually, yeah.
I can.
It's Evan's turn.
So I guess since it wasn't my blurb in the voter pamphlet guide, I'm not sure exactly what is being referred to with one size fits all schools. Is it just, are we just talking about size of schools?
I think it refers to Marianne, are you referring to the big buildings that they're building?
Mega schools, okay. And mega schools are defined by, is there like a number that you have in mind that is where you cross the threshold into a mega school?
4 to 5.
4, okay. So I, you know, I will say, so my youngest child who's still in elementary school goes to a very small school. And it's a really intimate community and I love it, but there are a lot of issues with it being small as well. There's a lot of shuffling around that happens because enrollment changes and kids have to have a teacher one week and then they're moved to another class another week. And we have to choose between art teacher or a counselor. And these are not well-resourced schools. My understanding is that sort of an optimum number for elementary school is between 300 and 400. And that's when you really reach a sweet spot of being able to cover administrative costs and also deliver all the services that kids need, and still have, and I think a solution to what Marianne talked about of kids slipping through the cracks is more adults and more relationships between adults and kids. It just takes one adult in the building to keep track of a kid. Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Down to Jesse. In the pamphlet, Jesse, you talk about a decent family wage for workers. Would you like to elaborate on that?
My pleasure. Education changed my life. I spent the last 32 years as a mentor for Seattle U, volunteer, not a dime. I enjoy every one of those relationships. Why do I do that? I share my experiences with the young people. They taught me technology I didn't know. This is a great way to connect the generations in education by sharing with each other. Wages is not about minimum wage. Wages is about creating value to whatever they do. And they cannot create value without proper training, without proper education, without proper internship, apprenticeship. If we teach them well, people can get much higher wages because they produce more. Okay, employer pay for the value. Employer don't like to pay for minimum wage. Nobody wants to just pay wages and expect nothing. So with that in mind, I think it's so important for us to think higher, bigger, raise the bar of a community. Make sure our young people do have jobs and old people too, not just young people. And make sure everybody gets decent compensation by having the proper training to manage the job. Right now, there are a lot of jobs waiting for people. There are a lot of people waiting for jobs, not matching up. Okay, time to change.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to end. Thank you to all of our candidates tonight. And perhaps some of them might just hang out a little bit, maybe talk to you, but I think we're going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Well, I didn't put that in this time. Yeah, I did not. Yeah, so that's it. They can close statements individually. I just want to say that Liza Rankin is going to, she is the sitting Seattle Schools board member, and she'll speak with us in our October meeting. Yeah, got that down. Thursday, the first Thursday in October. Thank you for coming.
We also have community dance coming up.
Oh, okay.
Next Saturday. Saturday, 6:30. Thank you. Saturday, yes, this Saturday, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. So please come. No experience required. We'll have live music. Should be pretty awesome.